and welcome to the most peaceful place, where the fruiting plants and animals roam free. Thank you, thank you, thank you to all of them, as they make this piece of haven very enjoyable for all. Thank you, thank you, thank you for coming to Peaceful Village. Hello everybody, Michael Lanfield here from Peaceful Village Raw Vegan Healing Community in the Amazon. Yeah. Okay, so today's video is questions that we get from people usually. So these type of general type of questions that people get. This is not particularly about Peaceful Village. This is about the new Mother Earth. So we had several people over the time read the new Mother Earth and give us their feedback and questions. So I'm going to just summarize what the questions are and my understanding, or one moment here, my understanding or just addressing these questions. So the new Mother Earth is 3 different sections. The first one is understanding what's really going on within society, understanding that society is slavery, governments are slavery, all the institutions within are slavery, is a slavery system. It keeps us in servitude, it keeps us in this cage. It could be this invisible cage that we are in. And so yeah, that is really like, it's all about the first part of the book, all about getting to know what is happening within the system, within society, and living in towns and cities. The second part is, now that we know, we need to put that into action. So we need to realize that no longer can we support this system. We need to transition and get away from supporting this system, which means that we need to all be in warm tropical areas of the world, growing all of our own food, and not just growing all of our own food in warm tropical places, but slowly transitioning away from the system. So not supporting all of the institutions, not supporting the money system as much as possible within the community. So people closest to us that have lands and this kind of thing, we should share with one another, not trade or barter, because that means we're not unconditionally giving, but giving from our hearts, unconditionally giving from our hearts. Okay? And the third part of the book is really about sharing this message with people, sharing the way we live with people through the internet or directly one-on-one with people. So just sharing the message with people. So that is the new Mother Earth book. Yeah, we have it available in paperback and hardcover and ebook. So it's available on Amazon, on different websites. It's available at our website at peacefulvillage.org. So peacefulvillage.org. So you can definitely check that out. Yeah, that's about it for the actual introduction of the book. The audiobook is eventually coming, and then at some point, hopefully a documentary. So the questions were, for example, if everybody adopts this way of being in the world, they understand what's going on in society, they put that into action, so they go vegan anarchist, and they share this message with people, so they move somehow to the, there's other videos about this, but they move somewhere to the warm tropical areas of the world, growing their own food veganically, so no animal inputs, no chemicals at all. So the 8 billion people, or whatever amount of people there are on this earth, I don't know, because it's all government statistics. Those people, how are they all going to fit in the tropics of the world? If they start cutting down the forest and growing food, there's not going to be native forest anymore. So how are we going to do this? How is it all going to work? So let me address this. So first of all, not every single human is going to adopt this way of being, of living. Okay? Not everyone is going to adopt this way of living. Not hypothetically. We cannot say hypothetically if 8 billion people are going to be in the... It's not going to happen. Because not everybody is going to first read the book, The New Mother Earth, or even adopt the ideas. So, but let's just imagine there's a scenario where, okay, 8 billion or 20 billion people go to the Amazon or to wherever warm region of the world to grow their food, okay? It can be subtropical or it can be tropical, or ultra-tropical, okay? So very warm places of the world. Now, what these people are saying is that people would need to deforest in order to grow food, and then destroy native forests. And how would 8 billion or 10 billion or 20 billion people fit in the tropical areas of the world? So that is the question. So let's just imagine 10 billion people went to the warm areas of the world, the subtropical or tropical areas of the world, to grow their own food veganically, okay? Now, if we maximize space, especially fruiting trees, because fruiting trees are possibly the most efficient, ecological, most sustainable plants or anything to grow, basically, fruiting trees. Of course, in conjunction with native trees that are already on the land, or ones that can grow, native trees that grow on the land. So, for example, it's possible, and I don't have the stats or the numbers or anything like this, but it's possible that however many people, I don't know, let's just say 8 or 10 billion people, go to the warm climates of the world, okay? There's a lot of land that is already cleared, so then we can reforest that land, some of the land. At least, from what I heard, at least 25 to 30% of the land should be reforested with native forest, depending on the structure of the land. If it's all rocks and you cannot get into the land, so depending. But at least in where we are, minimum 25% of the land should be native trees. Okay, so if there's already native forest all around, we should not, as best as we can, not clear as much. But what we want ultimately is we need to eat. Unfortunately, most people are not breatharians or pranic, so we need to eat. Human beings need to eat, right? We're not like other animals, unfortunately, because we've been domesticated. We're not like other animals where we need to, where we can just like forage and that's it. Maybe there are some people that can do that, but most people cannot do that. So unfortunately, if there's a land that we have or that we're caretakers of, and there's no space at all, it's just native forest. It depends what type of native forest it is. If there's a lot of smaller trees or things like that, I mean, we need to build our small little cabins, our small little shacks. We need to live somewhere. We cannot just sleep in a tent all our lives, right? So we need to build, we're domesticated, unfortunately, so we need some balance in how we live within the ecosystem. I'm not saying that I have all the answers. You know, I'm just addressing this question. You can go further, but basically, if we balance basically the native forest part of it Of course, not cutting anything that is on a slope or on a mountain or closest to like a secondary or third road, or close to a river. We don't want to do that because then there's going to be erosion and the mountain can eventually, you know, it can erode and it can get smaller over time. But the aim is to try to do the least amount of harm and the most good in the world. And that's hard when we're trying to say, okay, truly I don't want to cut any tree, but sometimes you have to cut trees. You have to cut trees. But as little as we can, as we don't want to cut trees if we can, okay? But we need to grow our food. So if we need to cut a secondary part of a secondary forest in order to reforest it with fruit trees, we need to do that, and to have some building, we need to do that. But of course, we need to be modest. We cannot have a huge mansion right there and clear the whole entire thing and don't plant anything. We need to plant fruit trees. Fruit trees are the best thing that we should be planting, and also to keep as much of the native forest as possible, and ancestral trees, to definitely keep ancestral trees. So yeah. So it's possible for 8 billion people to be in, there's like a lot of land. The problem is that land is being used for monocultures, for growing things like cacao and things to grow to animals, domesticated animals. So, and also grazing animals, non-human animals. So that is not efficient at all. Get rid of animal agriculture and we got a lot of land for human beings and native animals and native trees, native forests. So and whatever, I don't even know. We really don't know if there's truly 8 billion people here. So that's just government statistics. But anyways, it's possible. I'm pretty sure it's very possible. Growing fruits, especially, is the most ecologically sustainable, with intercropping with leguminous plants and things like that. So it's possible, yeah. So another question is, the question is basically that these people feel that, yes, fruitarian, raw veganism is the way to be, but in a 3D reality, in society, as we are domesticated animals. By the way, it's raining, so if you hear something, hopefully it's not going to rain that loud because it gets really, really loud. But most digestive systems, they're saying, many people have such compromised digestive systems that it would not be possible to be completely raw or vegan or anything like that. We need once in a while some animal products, whatever it is. If it's once in a while some organic chicken or cheese or ghee, or which is clarified butter, or eggs or honey or something. So let me just say that if we're not vegan, we are causing tremendous suffering and harm, and we're seeing other beings as property, as things to be used. We're seeing whatever comes from them, like their eggs, milk, honey, all this kind of stuff is like ours to use. And so we don't see it as they have a right to be in nature, just left alone. If they want to come to us and they want to cuddle with us and things like that, okay, but we don't want to keep them as pets. We don't want to feed them because then they're going to lose their natural instincts. So everyone, every human being, it's like every species of animal, like primates, for example, have a specific food that they need to eat. They're biologically intended to eat mostly fruits, but also some leaves, and on occasion, maybe some insects here and there. But that is just in desperate times. So in desperate times is when they eat insects and probably small little animals and stuff like that. But probably 99+% of their food is is food, fruits, mostly fruits, but also leafy greens and things like that. For example, gorillas, they are less able to go up high on trees, so they eat less fruits than the other smaller primates. But every species has a biological food that they're supposed to eat. Humans are frugivores. Frugivores is a little bit different in my view than fruitarian, because frugivore means that we're almost entirely eating fruit as our food, but here and there we eat other things. So frugivore does not mean that we are completely vegan, not eating animals at all, because if we're frugivore in nature, just foraging and walking around in nature without any outside contact with society and this kind of thing, or other people, for example, then we don't share this kind of thing. We basically just eat whatever is around. And if we get desperate at times and we need to eat something, maybe, I don't know, but if I was in a desperate situation, eat some animal or secretion from an animal that maybe is dead in the forest or on the side of the road or something like that. But really it's not, to my view, is not appealing to eat something or someone that has flies and is decomposing and blood and all this kind of thing, even if they're dead. So that's something to think about. But we are biologically frugivores. We're not vegans. By biologically, we're not vegans. But because we understand, and we're at a level of consciousness, and we understand the ethical implications and things of not using animals and what's happening so basically it's not a diet and it's not a philosophy. It's a level of consciousness that understands that non-human animals should not be used at all for anything. Okay? Should not be seen as products and nothing like that. Okay? So, of course, people's digestive systems, people's bodies are completely deteriorated. And so, yeah, it's difficult for people sometimes to transition. The transition can take a long time. But truly, if we're supporting the harm of animals, even if it's once in a while, once a month or once every year or whatever. I mean, if it's once a year, like why the hell we just don't go completely vegan, So veganism is really about not seeing animals for anything, for food, for clothing, for entertainment, for whatever. So not seeing non-human animals for anything, not using their manure, their anything, for fertilizers, for growing food, for whatever. So we definitely can be vegan. I've been vegan 16 years. There have been people vegan for 50 years. Raw vegan is a little different story. We're still not, we're going off and on, up and down when it comes to vegan and raw vegan. I'm eating a lot of my food from raw vegan sources, a lot of fruits and veggies. But because we're relying less and less and less on society, and we're not spending as much money as we used to, so we're going to towns and cities to get our food, much less. We're eating a little bit more cooked meals to compensate with that. We just don't want to support the system as much as possible and to use as little money as possible, eventually to use no money at all. So it doesn't take a lifetime to adapt to eating vegan. Once we absolutely have this consciousness that we don't want to use animals for anything, non-human animals, we just don't use them at all. That's it, for anything. We try to, if we have to buy something or to eat something or to wear something, we do it not using animals. If we have to transport something, we do the transporting of goods, whatever may be, without using animals at all. So no mules and donkeys and horses and these kind of things, okay? Let me see what else. Let me just read the question first, and then I will explain. Uh, okay, so what the question is basically that when people are living in colder climates, right? And they don't have the opportunity to grow food, their food all year round. And I don't mean potatoes and then storing the potatoes in a cold storage or something for winter time. I mean like having an actual growing season of 12 months out of the year. And I don't mean heated greenhouses and this kind of thing. I'm talking about actually 12 months of the year having growing season, okay? So, people say that, okay, there's two implications. Having to go completely, starting from scratch. I have all my land here or garden here or friends here or biological family here, and I don't want to just leave all of them to go to the tropics and build a new life for myself from scratch. So there's kind of a conflict. I see that is the real way we need to live, because I understand when people read the New Mother Earth, they understand that they need to go to warm tropical climates. They understand this. But it's hard because they're in their comfort zone. They are in places where they still have biological family and friends, and they have already their home and established and this kind of thing, and then having to go somewhere completely foreign to them, to another place on earth, completely foreign to them, to start from scratch is difficult. So address that question. Yeah. So, or that concern. So I had that concern too when I was living in a cold place before. I don't like to mention where I was living, where I grew up, because I don't identify with any of that kind of stuff. But let's just say a very, very cold place. And for many years, I started like envisioning or creating Peaceful Village in 2014. So this was like 8 years before we actually got this land. And I didn't know how I was going to do it, how I have to take my whole life and I have to take it to the tropical, some tropical place. And then I have to adapt myself to the language, to the people, to the culture. I have to adapt myself. I have to get land. It's expensive. All these things, you know. And I said, okay, I'm going to make that huge move. It took me 8 years, so it wasn't an easy transition, and I didn't know how I was going to do that. In fact, I was depressed many times because I just didn't know how I was going to do that. How am I going to afford, if I go to the United States or somewhere, maybe let's say very, very, very South United States, maybe, I don't know, South Florida or South California, Baja, or whatever, California or somewhere. And I said, okay, so how am I going to do that? Buy a $200,000 land, this kind of thing, you know? So it's another level of consciousness to understand all of this kind of thing. Also, I had family, but I was traveling, so I was a little bit disconnected from my mother, my sister, and so forth. And we were not that close. I was more with my mother and some of my uncles and aunts. But yeah, I was calling them here and there, and still do. But I was ready to leave because it was no problem. I was living with my mother until sometime after I was 30, and then you can call me a mama's boy, but but I then traveled and I went around to South America, Central America, South America, this kind of places, in Canada, United States, so forth. And basically what I did was I had that level of consciousness that I need to do this, that this is my journey. Even though I have a lot of things here, I have a lot of physical items here that I've already, for example, I had a lot of recording equipment, video and audio recording equipment. I had a lot of computers and a lot of things. And over time, I just gave them away or sold things. And mostly just gave them away for free. And to be able to move, basically. I gave my bicycles away, I gave everything away. At least most of it. I had still some backpacks and some basic clothing and things like that. I had my laptop, my laptop computer. I had a phone at the time, cell phone, this kind of thing. So when people think, okay, I have a family, and I just don't want to leave them, my mother, my father, my sisters, my brothers, or I have a loved one, girlfriend or boyfriend, or that's intimate partner, or I have my children, or this kind of things, you know. And I just can't leave everybody. I have my house here, I have all this here. I cannot just leave somewhere to a foreign land, you know. What we need to realize here, and this is again about a level of consciousness, okay, is that if we truly want, we understand from the new Mother Earth that society itself, living in towns and cities, is not sustainable. It's in slavery system. So being in this system of slavery is not free, basically. So if we're still using money, if we're not completely free of money, we're still somewhat in that slavery system. Now we can be transitioning away from it, and we're becoming freer and freer, but truly we are not free. So that is the whole key. We are not free, and we are not living or fulfilling our destiny, our journey. We are fulfilling it based on our comforts, based on attachments. So if we want to be free, we need to be free from certain people, like our biological families. If they don't agree with us and they don't want to, you know, do that switch and go all the way to the warm tropical areas of the world, then we just need to leave. If we want to be free and we want to grow all of our food all year round, there's just no way. We have to take that jump. Now, there's a transition. It took me 8 years from the consciousness. At the time, I was writing a book. I was just about almost releasing a book, the interconnectedness of life, and slowly I started traveling. I started doing things. I started going places, and I realized at some point that about 2017 or 18, something like that, I realized that I cannot just think about it. I actually need to act. So if I really want to manifest what I want, which is freedom, growing all of my own food all year round, not relying on the system, that we don't know what they're doing to us in the medical industry, and with surveillance cameras and with our biometrics and all this kind of stuff. I mean, they're tracking us, and who knows what they're going to do. They're going to create basically Frankensteins out of us. We don't want that. We don't want to eat poison from the supermarkets, from the markets. Most, if not all of the food that we're getting from towns and cities, which are grown actually in nature, but they're manipulated one way or another. Most of it, if not almost all of it, manipulated. And so we really don't know what we're eating, even if it says organic on the package or whatever. We don't know what we're eating. And so it's better to grow our own food, or to know people that are growing food organically, or preferably veganically, without any animal inputs at all. And yeah, there's no way. I mean, if we would, the whole thing is about freedom. Freedom. Okay? So if we want to be free as human beings, and we want all beings to be free, all creatures to be free, we need to be somewhere where we can grow all of our food all year round in warm tropical climates. And there's no questions about that. If we want to be attached to our families and we're scared to go somewhere, that's fear. That is fear. That is not love. And so we need to live by love, with love, because we are love. We are spirit. So innately, deep down, fundamentally, we are love, unconditional love. Because the spirit is love. That's what love means. It means the essence of who we are, the spirit. Spirit you can call God. And I don't mean God as in a holy man in the sky with a big beard. I mean, we are all gods, all of us, even the inanimate objects, because everything came from the earth, either below the ground or above the ground. So if we are not in the frequency of love, or at least transitioning to the frequency of love and including more and more and more love into our lives, we're in fear, still in fear in some way. Yes, in some way I'm still in fear with certain things in my life, and I'm learning to how to heal that fear, or to remove it, or whatever. But really, if people still, and there are going to be people that still argue that I need to be with my biological family, I have children there, I have this, I have that, they don't want to leave, and if they still want to argue, that's just their path. But truly, once we have that level of consciousness, we're at that level of consciousness, and we understand, hey, I know what's going to happen within the next few years or next few decades in society. I don't want to be part of it. I want to be prepared as much as possible. Then we need to get the hell out of where we are in cold places and go to somewhere warm. Now, how exactly we do that, that's another video. But we need to do that. We need to make a plan and take the steps necessary in order to get to where we want to be. Okay? That's just it. That's just it. There's no excuses. Because once you're at a level of consciousness that doesn't see animals, non-human animals, as property, as things to be used, then automatically we are vegan. There's no question about that for anything. Okay? If we have a piece of clothing and it has silk on it, we absolutely don't use it, because unless we absolutely don't know that it's silk, or mistakenly something has some ingredient in it we don't really know because it's not labeled properly or whatever. That's why it's always best to walk naked, of course, to get our food from sources we actually know what is in it. When we plant our own bananas, we know the bananas are veganic, so nothing. Naturally free roaming animals, yes, they shouldn't piss all over the place, and they may go on the plant, yes, but that's natural. That's not a domesticated animal or domesticated feces or blood meal or bone meal or fish meal or whatever going into the ground. Okay? It's not some animal that we took from the side of the road and their body and suddenly spread the blood all around. So now we're putting blood from whatever animal or whoever died on the road and putting it in our plants. We're not doing that because we don't want that kind of thing, because we don't see the bodies of the dead animal as things to be used. And so we have that level of consciousness that we are completely vegan. We have the level of consciousness that we need to grow our food all year round. All year round. and then go to warm tropical climates. However we see fit to do that. Now, nowadays, just one last thing about this question is nowadays there's a lot of biometrics and a lot of invasion of our privacy and sovereignty that's happening when we are traveling through airplanes and this kind of thing, over borders and this kind of thing. And it's sad that it's happening, and it's happening quickly. Get the fuck out of your country if you're in a cold place. Figure a way how to do it without any reliance or any somehow without the police or military allowing to scan you or to take your biometrics or whatever the case may be. There are some places like Europe that's mandating that they take their biometrics. In fact, we heard from friends that is happening. So absolutely, there must be a better way. So go to a place somehow without requiring your biometrics, without requiring yourself to be tracked or to have your passport or whatever. Just do it however you can. We are vegan anarchists. Anarchist means basically that we don't follow, there are no rulers. It means no rulers. So doesn't mean that we don't have a set, or we're not guided by a set of core values, yes, and birthrights, but there's no rulers, like a hierarchy system where the government or cabal are above us telling us what to do with ourselves, okay? We are sovereign human beings. The right to govern our own bodies, okay? So get the hell out of there. If we're at a level of consciousness, just go somehow to a place. I don't know how, but that's another video. There's so many videos to mention, but this is definitely a very, very complicated topic, but just get the hell out of there. Once we're at a level of consciousness that understands that we need to be vegan anarchists, and we need to go to warm tropical areas of the world and start growing all of our own food, we're going to find ways to do that without getting vaccinated for COVID or any other vaccinations, without getting our biometrics done, without being coerced by police or government or whoever. So this kind of thing. We still may need to pay taxes for flights, or pay for flights and this kind of stuff, or go through airplanes, or go through means that we really don't like. But it's a transition, but yeah, we are sovereign human beings, so we have to realize that, and as much as possible not to do that nonsense with the vaccinations, with microchipping, with biometrics, all this kind of thing. They have all your information, they track you, all kinds of stuff. I don't want any part of that. So okay, let me just read this, and then I will okay, so basically what the question is, that we are still in this old consciousness or low level of consciousness, and most animals, us, human animals and other animals, and also plants like Venus flytrap and other meat-eating plants, or plants that wrap around other plants and choke them to death. So there's a lot of violence in nature. So what do you have to say about that? All the violence that is happening in nature, and is that what explain that, and also explain the in relation to the human violence that's happening on the earth and this kind of thing. So, to address this question, we need to realize that everything is a transition. I do believe, I do feel that at some point in the distant past, that all beings were living in harmony with one another. Now, I don't agree completely with the Bible, the Christian Bible, but there are some truths to that. It's been manipulated so many times. There's some truth in that. It says that the lamb will lie down with the wolf. However you want to interpret that, but at some point in the distant past, I do believe that all animals were living in harmony with one another, and then for whatever reason, that all changed. And I do believe that changed because humanity started more and more and more to kill and eat animals and to use and abuse animals, especially according to anthropologists, especially in the last 10 to 15,000 years. So that between 10 and 15,000 years ago, that's when it's really started to take effect. And once we started to domesticate plants and animals, that's when we start seeing more and more the effects of it on nature. We mirror whatever we do, we mirror that, or we see that mirrored in nature, right? So, for example, if we are living completely harmonious, let's say, I don't know, tens of thousands of years ago as human beings, or even hundreds of thousands of years ago, then we just see, we're living in the Garden of Eden, we don't see any disharmony. We see everyone is in harmony. We see even what we would know today as ferocious, omnivorous, or carnivorous animals, all beings in harmony with one another. No one eating anybody else, everybody just eating fruits of the earth, or some leaves here and there, or fasting, this kind of thing. So there was harmony. At some point, when the level of consciousness of human beings diminished because we started to use other beings for whatever reason, it's, from what I truly feel and believe and we have researched and read, and my experience is that when human beings went to cold climates, when they started traveling or foraging to cold climates, we had the necessity to consume animals for our survival and for clothing and things like that. So then, over time, once our level of consciousness goes down, we start seeing and also mirroring similar things in nature. So then we start seeing plants wrapping around other plants and choking them. We start seeing other animals eating other animals. We start witnessing, violence out in nature. Yes, it's true. And today we see a lot of that. However, being in nature for many years, off and on, and now permanently on our land, here and there we go to town to get our groceries and so forth, much less than we did before in the last month or so, or 2 months actually. But we are witnessing more harmony in nature than killing, enslavement, this kind of thing. So we're seeing definitely much more harmony in nature. So yes, there may be the odd animal that kills another animal, but let me tell you, they do so for survival reasons, but they also are causing negative karma. Karma means action in Sanskrit. Action, just action. So the negative karma, the harmful karma that these beings are causing is going to come back to them in some way or another as harm back to them at some time. So doesn't mean that, okay, there's some harm in nature, so we should cause harm ourselves. If we have the level of consciousness and the understanding that we don't want to cause harm as much as possible, we don't do it. Now there are some circumstances where we may have to do things that are not in our heart, wanting to do things. We may have to destroy something or to cut something down in order to do something else, or in order to protect ourselves, or whatever the case may be. But we are transitioning. We don't have all the answers. We still may harm here and there, but my whole motto is to do the most good in life, the least harm, most good in life and the least harm, basically. Okay? So yeah, so that is the old paradigm. It's really about not causing harm. Okay, let's live now, and over time, when more and more people adopt vegan anarchist ways of being, especially raw vegan, then we'll start to see more and more animals in nature start adopting that same way. It may not happen in our lifetime. It may happen after thousands or tens of thousands of years, but it's not that far away. It can take a few thousand years if humanity adopts vegan anarchist ways of being. So yeah. Okay, so one other concern was that in nature, so basically the question is, in nature, so they're talking about nature, of animals being, non-human animals being in nature, and the other ones being in farm sanctuaries or zoos. Now farm sanctuaries and zoos, basically for me, they're the same thing. They're enslavement for animals, they're in cages. Doesn't matter if they're in a large fenced-in area, it's a cage. And no matter how they're treated, okay? Animals need to be free in their natural habitat, that's it. So, they said that animals in nature would probably live shorter lives than animals in domestication. Because they're protected, they're cared for, they're given the food, and animals in nature would probably be killed or things like this. Okay. This is a great question. Thank you, by the way, for asking this, because I'm just so grateful. This gets me to actually think about this kind of thing. Now, animals in nature and in captivity. I can't remember how it is. I would have to research this again, because I read it a long time ago. But doesn't matter if, first of all, animals in nature are free. Okay? Doesn't matter if they live 10 times less in number of years, if they live 10 times less, or 10 years less, or whatever, or if they live longer in zoos and farm sanctuaries. The thing is, in nature, if it's completely wild nature, they're free. In sanctuaries, and I don't even like using that term sanctuary, because sanctuary is a very, very beautiful word, and they misuse that word. They really misuse it. The farm sanctuaries that I saw, all of them are jails. They're basically zoos that are just a little bit better conditions, you know. That's it. Some of them are even worse conditions. So in zoos and sanctuaries, they're in prison. They're not free. So even if they were to live 2 times longer or 5 times longer or 10 times longer, it doesn't matter. They're not free. It's like a human being, for example, living 100 years, and in nature, let's just imagine they live 60 years. At least in nature, the human is free. So that's the key, free and not free. So the freedom is the key. So the key with all these questions basically is a higher level of consciousness and freedom. So if we respect our freedom and respect the freedom of other beings, we all need to go back to nature where we all came from. So if animals in nature are sick, or this is just part of the question. If animals are sick or hurt in nature, that's just how it is. That's just how it is. If I get injured in nature, I have to take care of myself the best I can. I have to take care of myself. There's no hospitals in nature. And also in society, we may live longer, but not necessarily healthy, or more healthier. So I don't want to be part of that system. It's slaving. It's a slave system. It's slavery. Okay, it's slavery. Okay, so the question is basically society. I'm against the medical and pharmaceutical industry, but and the chemical industry, but there's better hygiene in society, better conditions. Now humans live longer lives, this kind of thing. But before, when we were living in nature as human beings, we didn't live so long, probably 30, 40, 50 years, this kind of thing. So let me address this, okay? First of all, we truly don't know how long human beings were living. Yes, science says one thing, we really don't know. We were not there, we really don't know. Or at least we don't remember if we were there. That's one thing. So we really don't know, right? Another thing, we are not free. No matter how long we live and better conditions that we live in society, we are not free. We are going away from love. Okay? So that's the thing. We're going away from love. So we're able to achieve more lifetime because of supplements, because of medications, because of this kind of stuff. No, in fact, society is causing more stress, causing more diseases. People are dying actually early ages. Their life expectancy is much lower. Worse quality of life, so their quality of life diminishes. A lot of things. It's horrible. Society is horrible. I've lived in society. It's slavery. Living in towns and cities is slavery. What can I say? I mean, also another thing that we must consider is that in nature everything is pure and natural. Okay, unless we're destroying nature as we're doing nowadays, human beings are destroying. But just going to a pristine area of nature, then we're drinking rainwater, we're drinking pristine river water, we're walking naked around, getting the sun on our skin, eating pure wholesome food, growing all our own food, this kind of thing. About this concept of people dying earlier age, just think about this. There are records, scientifically and not scientifically. There are records. There are also many sources from Greg Braden and from other sources that actually state that humans, even in the Bible it says this, and I believe this, that humans at some point before, even thousands of years ago, even tens of thousands of years ago, humans were living longer, healthier lives. They were not living the 30 or 40, 50 years as we're programmed to believe, as probably science has you believe, leads us to believe. I do believe truly that human beings were so much more healthier, vital. We were living over 100, even probably hundreds of years. But a lot of this is not documented because these people were living completely isolated from society. So nobody knows anything about them. And if they do know something about them, they're not documented. They're either killed or yeah, we just don't know anything about them. So I do believe that people are living healthier, that they were living healthier and longer lives, definitely. At least to 100 or even hundreds of years, you know. It says this in the Bible, it says this in many ancient texts. And I do believe, in my heart, I do believe humans were just much more healthier, vital, stronger, this kind of things. And we were living in harmony with all life. Yeah, definitely. Okay, let me just read this carefully. Okay, so this is about overpopulation. This overpopulation is both true and untrue. So let me clarify this, okay? So truth comes from the spirit. Spirit is love. Okay? So let me explain. Overpopulation is the idea that there's too many of a group of beings, in this case human beings, on earth, right? So let me explain this. First of all, we are told that there are somewhere between 7 and 9 billion people on the earth. Okay, probably 8, 9 billion people on the earth, something like that, according to different government sources. They all come from government statistics. We don't know if any of that is true because we cannot trust the government, okay? They're doing everything that enslaves us and keeps us not living free, okay? So that's one thing. So we don't know how many people are in this world today. Now, the world is not overpopulated. Not overpopulated at all. That is all a myth. It's only overpopulated in towns and cities. So what the government is doing is they're promoting that it's a beautiful life, that we cannot do anything in nature. There's no way to make money in nature, to get our food and to do things. And nature is just desolate. And yeah, go to the city, go to towns and start making money and start getting your food and start, you know, being a part of society. Okay. Towns and cities, especially mega cities, are places where it's overpopulated, where there's too many people. These are small cages, or large cages, I don't know what you want to call them, but these are cages. And the government, the cabal, can control people more and more, where people can be controlled more and more. Okay, so there's enough land all over the world to have as many children as you want to have whatever, many children. But in reality, once we start living holistically healthier, living in nature, away from cell radiation and all this kind of thing, and eating wholesome veganic food, and healing past wounds, childhood wounds, ancestral wounds, doing everything we can to holistically heal. By the way, we are in production currently writing a book called The Way We Heal, so that's something else. Just a side note. So holistically healing, we will realize that we less and less and less and less want to have sex, want to have intercourse. So the only reason for intercourse is to procreate. As many spiritually minded yogis, shamans, many spiritual people say that we should be procreating or having intercourse, basically, probably once or twice a year maximum. Okay? So once or twice a year maximum. And when we start eating healthier and we start holistically healing, our libido starts diminishing. And I remember my libido being very high in the city and having to masturbate, very frequently, and now it's much, much, much less. And that's not a bad thing. Not necessarily a bad thing. So yeah, there has to be kind of a balance. So yeah, I would say once or twice a year is kind of very less. It's kind of, yeah. I like more, but anyways, that's a different topic altogether. But yeah, overpopulation is a myth. That's our biological function. Okay, our biological function is to have children. That's why we have a biological reproductive system. We have genitals to reproduce and this kind of thing. All, at least mammals, are able to reproduce. Probably other animals too. So yeah, and plants and so forth. Okay, let's go talk about taking from animals. Okay, so someone was saying, okay, it's not harmful. I agree about not stealing from animals, not stealing their eggs, or taking the animal and plucking their feathers to use their feathers, or this kind of thing, or stealing the shell off the snail. I agree with that. But what about just the feather that fell down from an animal that was flying, or a shell that is a seashell that is somewhere on the shore? Can I take that? Can I just use that for something? Or taking the body of an animal to use for something? Because the material is already back in nature. So it's already, the animal's gone. For example, a shell, the animal's gone. So just take the shell and the seashell, or take the feather. I had this question posed to me before, and this is a very, very great question. Thank you for addressing this, or asking this. And for addressing this is basically that we see those things, probably because we're aware consciously, good, bad, or harm or no harm, but we consciously see these things as things to be used. Like a feather is things to be used. Now you can say the same thing for a flower. Like we have these little yellow bell flowers that drop their flowers, and we use sometimes the flowers, we put them in our hair and things like that, but we don't initially pull them off the plant. They just fall to the ground. We take the flower, and we put it in a nice decoration for our food or things like that, or we use them for a centerpiece or whatever it is. So that's with flowers, okay? But when it comes to using like feathers that you just find on the ground or whatever, what tends to happen when we're promoting this kind of thing, especially if we're promoting this thing, like for example, let's say we have a feather in our hair and we're on video, taking a video or something, and people see a feather in our hair, it's like, oh, now we can use feathers, so it's okay. So vegans are able to use feathers, even though no animal was harmed. So, but it still promotes the idea that we're able to use things that come from animals, to use the shells or the feathers that come from animals. So that is what the idea is behind this, is that we have the idea that we're able to use, and it promotes the idea that we are able to use the feathers or things. It's like saying, for example, oh, I'm going to, someone is throwing away these leather boots. That leather comes from cows, from cattle, sometimes from the mother or sometimes even from the baby. And so someone is just throwing those boots out. I will just reuse them, you know. But that promotes, first of all, having a dead skin on our feet, with having it decomposed with chemicals, this kind of thing, and promoting that is definitely not a harmonious way to be. You're promoting wearing of leather, wearing animals, dead animals on our bodies. So even if there was no harm in getting that product, that promotes the use of animals. So I don't want anything to do with that. Sometimes I do see feathers, beautiful feathers on the ground, and sometimes I will put the feather somehow like in a tree or something where we can see it because it's beautiful. But I will never like promote that, like wearing that or promoting that in a video or something, and not even using it, but admiring the feather because there's beautiful designs, or the seashell, or yeah. I would never use dead bodies of any other animal, but anyways. Let me see here. Okay, so basically the question is that I agree with authorities not giving information, not, I'm a sovereign human being, but what happens if they put pressure on me? What happens if they think I did something wrong within the system, or something that goes against the laws, the human laws? I don't want to go to jail, to be put in pressure, to be put in jail, or so basically the question is like, I understand what the Mother Earth is saying, and that we have to rebel non-violently. We don't have to. We're sovereign human beings, so we ultimately are not obeying. So we're not giving our IDs and our legal names and all this kind of thing, and we're not allowing anyone to search us, even with a court order. So what happens if they start forcing us, or if they start, because in different places there's different laws, different things, different ways they do things, and they can even do things, police can even do things illegally. Well, no, I shouldn't say illegal, because we're not illegal or illegally, we don't care about that thing, but they can even do things against their own laws. So when it says something, they can go against their own laws, basically. So they can do things illegally against their own laws. So I don't want to be put into jail, this kind of thing. I can resist physically, for example, but I don't want to be, I don't want to be in jail or be fined or something like this. I don't want to deal with the consequences of what's happening. I don't want to face them, this kind of thing. So we need to realize that we need to stay true to the truth, true to the spirit. Okay? We are not a corporation. We are not an ID number. We are not our legal name. We are not from this or that country. We are not born in this or that country. We're just born in a place that is called a legal corporation, that is called such and such. But we are sovereign human beings. No one has the right to tell us what to do or how to live our lives. Okay, nature, the natural laws will dictate that if we violate any of the natural laws. Okay? So, if we're true to our spirit, right? If we want to be completely free, if we want to, because there's only two things in life. There's fear or there's love. And we cannot be scared. So we need to remove as much as we can. Of course, it takes time to remove completely fear, but we need to remove as much as we can fear. If we think, oh, I'm going to be fear that I'm going to be in jail, so I need to get this vaccination, or I need to get microchipped, or I need to get this biometrics because I'm in fear, then we're not aligned, or we're not getting closer to the spirit, to love. And that is not freedom. Freedom is love. Love is freedom. Spirit, God is all of that. Okay? The universe is all of that. So, if we believe we're going to be in jail, and we have this kind of programming in our minds, this vision that we're going to be in jail if we don't give them our information, if we don't give police or military our information, then we're those people that are just gonna perish. We're gonna be slaves of the system, and we're gonna just obey and do whatever they want because we don't have that level of consciousness that says, I don't want any part of this because I'm not a slave. I'm free. I'm free, and I want to free other beings. So I'm a vegan anarchist, and I want to not obey. Now, sometimes that's difficult, especially if we're not at that level of consciousness where we say no to this anymore, no to slavery, and yes to freedom. That's all I want to say here, okay? So the last thing is kind of an extension of another question. Basically that in the distant past, all animals were peaceful and non-violent, but some people believe, I even had a friend believe that some babies are just born evil. And I heard also that before, in the distant past, humans and also the world was in complete chaos. There was so much violence and corruption and wars happening and this kind of thing. And before 10,000 years, before the advent of agriculture, specifically animal agriculture, I believe humans and the earth and beings on the earth were in more harmony, living in more harmony. Because, think about it, our spirit, our heart is the center. Doesn't mean that the spirit is only in the center. but that is the where it kind of goes out and it spreads itself. But the heart is the center of the source or the essence, right? So at some that essence, that spirit is all about love. That spirit is all about unconditional love. That's what love means. It means spirit. It means God. It means that perfectness. That thing that is not, that being that is not, is basically in harmony with all life. Right? So when the starting point is that, right? The essence, the Big Bang, whatever you want to call it, God, if the essence is that, then once we evolved to our physical matter, we started becoming slowly more and more violent over the eons of time. But I don't believe our essence, our true essence, our heart value is violent. We are pure love, unconditional love. We are just all wounded, and we need to heal that. So thank you for all those questions. I really thank you, all of you who submitted many questions over the years. But those are the questions, or over the time that the New Mother Earth was. I've even had some of these questions even before. So I heard these questions before. There was probably just one new one that I thought about before, but it was kind of, one or two that were kind of tricky to address. But there you go. Thank you for watching. I'm Michael Lanfield from Peaceful Village Raw Vegan Healing Community. Hope you enjoyed this long video about questions from my book, The New Mother Earth. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye, everybody.